Well, hello, Jim. Thank you so much for being here. I want to ask you first if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
My name is Jim. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And that's what I do. That's my business of what I do. What I do also is I go camping. I love road trips.
Woo!
There are self-care things that I do that aren't business. So what I do is a few things.
Jim, we are like-minded. I love road trips as well. We'll have to talk on that offline. How did you come across the path of mental health as a profession? How did you decide on that?
I was in my 20s. I was bouncing around. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And this is before I knew the word intuition. But my intuition had me read one of these spiritual rags out here. I forget what it was called. And it had the name of a school. And I just kept going back to it. And I kept going, okay, I want to go there. And when I got there, I immediately applied. I got in, took the fundamental 2 years foundational course, after which you can apply to the counseling position to take additional coursework. And that's when I started understanding what intuition was. And that's when a voice in my head said, and this was not me. You have to know that I was not this gentle with myself ever before. But this voice came out of my head after that first 2 years, and it says, how do you want to help the world? And I was like, okay, who said that? And and the answer came, and it said, continue on with the graduate in counseling psychology. And that's what I say, I think it called me. I didn't choose it.
I love it. So somewhere born out of your studies grew this need to help and nurture other people. Yes?
I'd say that's accurate.
I love it. I love it. Is there a niche that you have, a certain focus in the mental health profession, or are you kind of a very broad?
That sounds like an easy question. I help people who are people pleasers. I help
Ooh,
people who are feeling outcast and alone. I have significant training in intimate partner violence. It used to be called DV, domestic violence. I worked for 5 years with perpetrators of domestic violence, worked with crystal meth recovery, concurrent actually, because it wasn't enough for me to get one heavy duty thing. I needed another heavy duty thing. That said, right now I do a lot of work with people who do have anger issues.
mm,
But again, I go back to, I work with people who don't know that they can actually affect change in their life. They don't know
mm.
that no matter what they do, that it's like, so what?
Yes, they
Yeah,
feel like they don't have agency over themselves and the decisions that they're making. They feel like victims. Yes. Wow. And you have this ability to help people overcome this.
my specific forte is making it feel safe, making people feel safe in the room. That I would say is my quintessential specialty. I like to make people feel safe. Once they feel safe, they can say anything they want. And I had one client for a number of years who just recently asked me if he could say curse words. And I'm like, can I say curse words on this?
Probably not here, but keep going.
I just said,
Thank you
freak.
for asking.
I said, freak, yeah. You know,
You're safe to do that elsewhere, just not here.
but it's like, it was so interesting because that was one of the things that was holding them back because they wanted to be a good client.
Mm.
And those are actually the more challenging clients. I want the clients who I want to see the ugly stuff that you judge as ugly, because I don't judge it as ugly. I don't have time to judge you. You're judging you. I don't have time. I'm here to reframe it, see if there's other way to look at it, other actions to take, inward actions, outward actions. That's what I do.
That is so interesting. I want to put a pin in the idea of psychological safety because this comes up a lot with federal employees in the government, but I want to ask you a few more questions before we get there. But that's huge. The idea of safety, people feeling like they can be themselves and they're free to express themselves. That's a huge topic of conversation. Okay. So if we're talking, let me ask you a clarifying question too. You deal mainly, you're a licensed therapist, you deal mainly one-on-one with clients, or are there group sessions? Do you speak publicly elsewhere? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Right now, I do exclusively through teletherapy. I used to have an office in West Hollywood, California.
Hmm.
And the current that seems to be happening is a number of people are starting to say, we want to come back into the office because we love our partners, but we're sick of our partners.
Yes.
And we want to leave, and we'll take the 30-minute commute so that this is a now official thing again. So this goes to, I'm going to be looking going forward to getting an office space. Some of my colleagues already have it, but a lot of us at the beginning of the pandemic, it was just like it changed the industry completely, and a lot of us are exclusively on Zoom.
Nice. Now, how does that affect your client base? You're licensed in California, so does that mean that you're only allowed to have clients because it's online? Your clients theoretically could be anywhere, but are you forced to then just see people that live in California? How does that work?
I love that question, because if the Board of Behavioral Sciences listens to this, they're going to hear that I am only allowed to see clients who are within the state of California, because that's where my license is.
Good word, good word. Well, we will make certain that we have resources for people all across the country in our show notes, just in case you have the need for a mental health professional and some guidance there. But thank you for clarifying that, Jim. Okay, let's get back to the idea of the workplace, or let's go to the idea of the workplace and mental health. How do you start off a conversation about mental health if you are the one experiencing challenges or concerns? Do you have any guidance for people or any general thoughts about that?
Am I having trouble at the work with my boss?
Not you personally. I'm let's say I live in California, you're my therapist, we're talking, and I'm having trouble and I need to have a conversation with my colleagues or with my supervisor about
Uh,
my own mental.
Thank you for that. That frames it a little differently,
Yeah.
because now we're talking communication and how to onboard and use on-ramping for how to get into the conversation. So that's very different than the psychology. And that's a lot of what I do. Is I do a lot of tutoring on how to say something without being a jerk. I have other words in my head. I just had to think of jerk. Jerk is nice. Um, so it's first, what I do with those clients that you're describing is I ask, what's going on underneath it all? Because is the workplace going against their values? Is it going against what they respect? Are they not being respected? And does that go back to childhood? All of these things are things that I look at, and I need to find those answers first. If it is a job thing, like an EAP, it's like, okay, then it's more concentrated, but it's still, what are my values that are being disrespected? And is that other person at work actually disrespecting me? An example, client A has a parent. Their parent always talks to them, and client A is feeling less than because their parent says, did you ask this? Did you ask that? Did you do the other thing? Did you do the other thing? And client A looks at, okay, my parent they don't respect me. They don't love me. And I said, does your parent actually have a background in all of this? And they go, yeah, they have a total background in all of this. So then I say, is it possible they're not even thinking about you, and they're just coming from their background of this and this and this? And then they implemented that mindset, and it shifted how they started to relate with their parent. I don't know. Does that answer your question? But that's
It definitely helps. So what you're saying, it's what it sounds like you're saying is being able to step back, looking at the other person's perspective, which requires empathy, right? It requires a whole lot of things, active listening, perspective, being able to pause and put a pin in my own thoughts and feelings and not quickly act on those before I get some additional information,
and
or at
not to
least
personalize it.
process, and not to personalize it.
Because
Wow.
one of the things that I do is I say, if I take me out and you put somebody else in, would that person do the same thing? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then it's not about you.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
that's where it's not about me, it's you.
Reframing the story that you tell yourself, which is for our federal employees, there's a course called Crucial Conversations, which applies directly to this. Profound course. I recommend anyone to take it. Very, very good. So thank you for bringing that up and making that connection for me. Okay, what about if I'm the colleague or the friend and I recognize, supervisor or whatever, and I recognize that someone I work with is not doing well or does not appear to be doing well? How do I broach that conversation? Is there a good way to broach that conversation, or should I just leave it alone and let them be? Now, what do I do?
Leaving it alone is on the table. That is because I look at all options. Leaving it alone is one of the options. If you care about the person or you are the boss and you want them to be more productive or more engaged or get their stuff done, leaving them alone is not going to really be effective, but it's still on the table. So that's why I'm saying, let's put it all out there. The thing that I would do is I would onboard the conversation with something that is not going to give too much away about me, but I may be going through something. Now, if I'm your boss and I'm going through it, I'm not going to give away a lot because I'm your boss, but it's enough for me to bridge saying, and I've noticed something's going on with you. And I'm wondering, is there anything that is going on? Because if there is, I want to be able to help you get, write your own course here. So I want to, if I look at, here's the you and here's the boss, as the boss, and a lot of bosses don't like doing what I'm about to say, but I want to humble myself a little bit. I want to humble myself a little bit, just become vulnerable enough, become honest enough, and then say, hey, can you meet me here? And how can I be able to help? Because we really do need you to get up on these deadlines. That's how I would look at that.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Leadership capabilities and skills. I'm hearing you talk about authenticity when you say humbling yourself and allowing yourself to be vulnerable a little bit. And so, yes, being yourself, maybe not sharing everything, but sharing some things, finding that common ground with the other person. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And these are all recurring things that keep coming up, psychological safety, finding that common ground, respect, authenticity, all of these things. So let's move into some of the things that employees may find traumatic in the workplace today. We have active shootings. We've got other violent episodes, people suffering from, you said intimate partner violence, even. That's something that people come to work with every day that they're dealing with. We've also got bullying, harassment, all kinds of toxic workplace events, gaslighting, etc. So as a mental health professional, what can we do? What do we do? I'm throwing a lot at you, so take whatever piece of it you want to take, but help me out here.
Okay, so I'm going to help you out with this. And you are not my client, just to be very clear. That said, I'm going to do something. I want you to do it right after me, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
It's called breathing. So I want you to watch my shoulders, and I just want you to watch I can back it out a little bit if I need to. But I just want you to watch what I'm doing. This is not a yoga breath. I'm not trying to get you to relax. I just want you to watch. Watch what I do. Do it. I didn't hear you. I want to hear the inhale.
You can't hear it? Can you hear it?
Hear your inhale. Then maybe this. Okay. Now,
Although I will say I did not hear yours either. So I see it, but I didn't hear it. So maybe it's the Zoom.
we both have good noise counseling mics.
That's great to know.
The aim of the exercise is to get back into the moment. Get back to now. Because what's going on, if I'm freaking out because there's an active shooter, there's bullying, there's harassment going on, I'm living either in the future or the past, but I'm not living now. One of the things I want to do in that deep breathing exercise that I just tried to have us do is about getting us back to now. Because when you took those 3 deep breaths, what were you thinking?
Well, I was really honestly trying to recreate what you did. And so I was focused on you and trying to mirror whatever it was that you were asking me to do in that moment.
Okay. You weren't thinking about the future.
No,
You
not
weren't
at
thinking
all.
past.
Nope.
You were only thinking about, am I doing this right? Can I?
Exactly. Like, oh, wait, the shape of his mouth is a little different. I need to alter mine. Let's go.
Wow, that's really specific. But you do not need to be perfect in the breath. The aim of the exercise is to stay here now. And a lot of us, when we try to do the mindfulness, we think that mindfulness is this Zen thing. And it's like, no, right now I'm mindful that I'm pissed. Okay. Right now I'm mindful that I'm anxious.
Yes.
I can take a breath. Right now I'm mindful that I'm nervous about putting gas in my car. In California, I'm sure it's more expensive than where you are. I don't care where you are. It's more expensive. Okay. So I take a deep breath. That gives me a moment. That's one thing that I want to do before I engage with anybody at work, in my primary relationship, in my social world. Take a breath. Going back to work, I might also, if it's possible in the workplace, I don't know, because this is my home office, light a candle, get a tea light. I would actually use an app on your phone, start doing a meditation. Now, let's be clear. I start people out on meditations for 20 seconds because people want to jump in and say, oh, yeah, I'll do meditations. Great. And it's like they do it and then they stop. But I start at 20, 30 seconds and I do it with you right then, because let's set ourselves up for success. Let's not set ourselves up for failure. So we start small, incremental steps. So a tea light, a deep breath. I have clients do this. Okay, get me centered. Get me here. And that can help in at your work. That can help in your relationship. That can help in traffic.
I love this. I work for a government agency, obviously federally employed women, right? And the undersecretary has literally been walking us through. She's been bringing in mental health professionals, and a lot of us together on a virtual platform will do mindfulness techniques together and go through maybe an hour of a wellness session. And that's beautiful. How many workplaces can say they do that? But that's exactly what you're saying to do. Be present in the moment. Let's practice these things together. And let's just work on being in the moment and improving our own wellness as we go. I love that.
I want to be clear. For a lot of people, it's really, really, really hard to be in the moment.
It is.
So it's like, I'm going to assume, do you drive a car?
I do. Thankfully, I have no commute either. I've got my home office here, 100% telework.
When you are in your car, is your radio on when you get there?
No, it's not on when I get there, but I do turn it on at some point. It's rare that
a lot of us turn the music on and when we come back from work, if we're working in person, we turn on our TV. We have trouble being in silence.
Yes, very
So
true.
I want to acknowledge that for the people who might be listening to this. It's tough to start being mindful, but I get to be mindful of, I'm pissed right now. That's fair, because that's mindful of what's happening right now in my mind.
Or
And
I'm distracted, or I'm feeling chaotic, or I'm feeling whatever it is that I'm feeling, owning it, being present, sitting with it. Is that what you're saying?
yes, sitting with it. And that's the hard part. And that's why I start people with like a 20-second meditation. And I go, how was that? And
Mm.
people go, it was tough. I've had one person this past week, we did that. And this is the facial reaction,
Which
because they
does
wanted to
not
laugh.
look very pleasant right now. Looks very painful.
Right. They wanted to laugh. And they had a hard time in that 20 seconds. But it happens. Does
It's
that answer
true.
that question?
It's very helpful. Thank you so much. I feel like, obviously we're trying to condense your lifetime of experience and your wealth of knowledge into this short little conversation. But yes, this is extremely helpful. Well, let me ask you, because this has come up, I think it's come up in a lot of workplaces, but just the idea of depression and suicide. We don't like to talk about it a lot, but every now and then we hear a story of someone who's either attempted to kill themselves or just someone really struggling. Any thoughts on that? What I don't know. I don't even know what to ask you, except what are your thoughts on it?
One of the questions that people have is, do I bring it up to the other person? And
Yes.
my answer to that is yes, because you bring it up.
Always?
I don't know always, but it's in most, it's the context of your relationship with them. It's
Mm,
always, I always have to look at the context of someone's relationship.
yes.
For me, I am, I'm going to say yes, and I will ask, but I don't necessarily ask, are you suicidal? I go, hey, you look like you're bummed out. Are you concerned about hurting yourself at all? But I also,
Aha.
because I'm a therapist, I also go, this is where I humble myself and I go, oh my God, I just wish a bus would take me today. Just walk out in front, da da da.
Wow.
And that's passive. Just because I want that, and I've had clients say that, doesn't mean that I'm suicidal. It
Hmm.
means I'm in a dark place. So I can say, hey, have I ever wanted to just not wake up in the morning? Some people have. And they go, oh, any things on wanting to actually hurt yourself? No, just don't want to wake up. Boom, we've
Mm,
separated out
mm,
potential active suicidality versus I'm really depressed.
right.
D-
And
d-
there's a difference.
oh, huge difference.
Yes.
And that's why I've got to make it very clear as a mental health professional, and for me just as a person, I distinguish between, yeah, life's tough. In 2023, life's really tough. And it's hard. Does that mean you're going to try and hurt yourself to get out of it? Most of the time, the answer is no.
Mm,
But there are people who said, I know somebody, a client B, they're on the road and they had the thought of just not wanting to return. And I explored that, and it's like, that's fine not to want to return. Tell me about it. Of course, you're not going to say that with your buddies over at a bar, but
of
in a
course.
therapy session, I want to know. And so
Sure.
that opens the conversation into passive, my life is really sucking right now, versus I need to get out. And then
Oh,
I take different actions based on that.
okay. So for
Interventions.
the colleague that is not a mental health professional, and obviously we don't have those skills and abilities that you do, should we be armed with resources? Should we be ready to point them in a direction? A list of perhaps therapists. Thankfully, we have the Employee Assistance Program, which is a great resource for federal employees. They can receive sessions, free sessions of counseling, and et cetera, et cetera. So there is that. But do you recommend just the humbling part and the sharing and talking part, Or do you think that we also need to kind of offer resources?
If I have the resources to offer the resource. And just what I do, this is a communication style.
Mm-hmm.
You look bummed. I mean, you really look bummed. Here's a couple of numbers for you. And do you want any coffee? Because I'm going to Starbucks. Now,
Yay.
what I just did is a hard pivot.
Whew.
Because what that does, that's a communication style. And it says, I'm not going to make this all heavy.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this just like, I care about you. Here are some numbers because I've been seeing you go down in the dumps, and I'm going to get Starbucks and I'm going to hit it. So you want anything? That says I'm done with that portion.
I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to blow this up into enormity. I'm just acknowledging it. And here, let's do this
I,
other thing.
I love you. I care about you. I'm seeing that you're dead, and I'm going to get a coffee.
These are amazing techniques. Amazing, amazing skills. Thank you. I'm excited. Not excited to try to implement them, of course, because this is not a happy topic to try to implement, but thank you for sharing some of these tools. This is helpful.
You
Okay.
got it.
Well, along those lines of trying to help others, I ran across something called mental health first aid courses online. And I
Yep,
thought,
I've got
oh,
it up on
that's
my browser
so
now.
interesting, kind of like regular first aid, but for mental health. Do you recommend that sort of thing? So we're talking about how we can help others and maybe not as mental health professionals. So just the average person who wants to just be helpful. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's overstepping our bounds because we're not trying to replace mental health professionals, right? What do you think?
I'm always for learning. So if that's going to help me help somebody else, or if it's just going to help me, and I can use that help that I've learned, sure, take it. The overstepping my bounds, I want to lead with that. I want to say, hey, Ivana, I may be overstepping my bounds here. I just need to tell you, I may be in the weeds. I may be crossing boundaries.
Mm,
I'm concerned. And,
mm-hmm.
and that's what I want to lead with. That's the step down. I'm maybe crossing boundaries here. I want to own that up front. That's how I onboard that conversation. A lot of people see when I overstep, because the overstepping is I assume something's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that assumption,
I'm
I
speaking.
I say something, and it could be so off course. I could be, in Florida when I'm really meant to hit Montana. It's just like I could really be way off. So what I want to do is I want a perception check. You used the words earlier today. I just like the words perception check, but you use the words clarifying question. And ask a perception checking question. Ask a clarifying question. Hey, you don't look so hot these days. Is anything going on? No, I'm fine. Are you sure? Because whenever I say fine, I think blah, 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 blah. And that's just me. But, now I make it about me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, I just wanted to check in. If there's anything I can do, let me know. There's the wide open sentence. If there's anything I can do, let me know. I really am here. Well, I wouldn't do call me anytime. No, I'm not going to call you at 3 a.m. But just call me. And if I can help, I will. So now I'm setting in a buffer that says I'm not going to overstep my bounds and I'm not going to not have boundaries. But if I can help, I'll try.
Yes.
And so if somebody wants to go for mental health first aid, that's outstanding. I just want to come across as we're all on this weird journey of life. And I saw this at Starbucks. The sign said, the person standing beside you may have some traumatic event going on in their life right now. I don't have my phone with me, but I took a pic of that and I just thought it was fantastic. If we can just come back to it's not all about me, and other people may be having problems, then I can put myself in check without self-judgment and be of assistance to them. In other words, I'm showing my humanity.
Ah, humanity. We all have it, right? We all are human. The thing that we share. Yes,
Am I answering your questions?
you are completely answering my questions and then some. And I just have to say, as a recovering people pleaser, thank you for reminding me about the importance of boundaries. How many times do we say that very thing? Call me anytime. I'm here whenever you need me. And we set ourselves up for failure, knowing full well that we cannot save the world. We cannot be available all the time for everyone. And so how do we, how do we share and be that supportive entity that we want to be, but also being clear on, having good expectations? I think that's important.
I think is really important because a lot of us have secret or hidden expectations. On my intake form that I have people sign up when they first come in, I say, I'm not a good emergency therapist. So if you are suicidal, know that I may not be able to return your call immediately, this sort of thing.
Mm,
The other thing I have in there is if you want to talk to me between sessions, I'm glad to have maybe a 10-minute phone conversation with you on occasion. But after that, I've got to charge you. And that is in my paperwork. So it sets the expectations of what I'm expecting and what I can do right out there. It's in paper. It's on paper.
sure. Perfect. Okay. Pivoting now. Thank you for that. All right. Hot topic in the federal government and elsewhere. Working from home, telework, the future of telework, people resisting going back to the office, but, certain entities wanting us all back there. Do you see any, of course, we don't have that long of a, I can't say that we have that much research on the effects, the long-term effects of telework, but what we have now, what you have in your arsenal, do you see any long-term effects, positive or negative, with telework?
I try to get out of positive and negative just as a thing. I try to go what works and what doesn't work. That's just
Mm,
how I try and look at things.
interesting.
That said, working from home, I can go to the grocery. I can take my car in for repair. I can get the car washed. I can go pick up my meds at the pharmacy. These are great things to be able to do. That said, I am no longer having the water cooler conversations with people I know at work. The micro interactions that we have on a daily basis, they're
Yes.
now in absentia, they're gone. And that is a challenge. And so I think working at home on a full-time basis is I've got to watch out for isolation, loneliness, because people at work may be doing something that I'm just not privy to. And so I don't know. I've been in private practice for a while. So if companies still hold picnics and stuff like that, I hope they do. Maybe I live in the past. I don't know if they do, but
They do, they do.
good. So if I'm teleworking and there's a company picnic, I would suggest going to the company picnic. Well, I don't know those people. I only know them by calls. I don't know. Well, that's how you get to know them.
Yeah. I read this fantastic article about some workers in Canada who flew to London to have, to be at the office meeting. It was an office party, whatever was going on. And they flew specifically for that reason so that they could engage in person with their colleagues, which is exciting. It's phenomenal. There are all sorts of workarounds. You're right. I don't know that we necessarily have to be in the office 100% all day, every day to reach those goals that we're talking about. But right, having that human interaction, being intentional about the human interaction is key.
And
Very.
if I'm working exclusively from home, the other thing is I don't know how this is going to sound, but I invite people to get on to Meetup and make friends on Meetup, create a morning ritual, to go get a coffee if you drink coffee, that sort of thing. Because again, those micro interactions with people at work. When I was at work, I'd say hi to my colleagues in the hall and, hey, did you hear about this? Oh, there's this new seminar coming up, blah, blah, blah. That said, that doesn't happen from my home office anymore.
Yes,
So I've got to make sure that I reach out, and I think people all over need to make sure that we're getting some micro interactions with people to let us know we're not alone.
you're right. You're very right. It reminds me, I'm actually in a few group chats with work friends, colleagues, what have you. And then we also have, collaboration tools where we can ping each other and have these kind of micro conversations that are happening throughout the day. So that can happen as well. There are all sorts of ways that we can creatively collaborate, but you're right, the interaction is important. Very, very important.
We're
Okay,
social creatures.
for sure. For sure. All right. This has been such a juicy conversation. I feel like it could go on forever. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with before we wrap this up?
There was a thing going on called It Gets Better a while back. I want to revise that. I don't speak for anybody in the movement, speak for myself. I want to speak to those people who think it can't get better and who think that's just a joke. Oh, it can get better. It can get better. It's going to take work. It doesn't mean it's going to get better. It'll get better. It'll get better with work, but the work is inside. I've got to change how I look at things, because maybe I've got it wrong. And
Mm,
just because I've got it wrong doesn't mean I'm a loser. It means I have the chance to look at things from a fresh new morning perspective.
opening the lens and seeing it differently.
And
Wow.
I'm going to go on the assumption of depersonalization. I'm not, that's the wrong word because it's psychological, but I want to not personalize it and just say, what if I got my premise wrong? What if I'm not an idiot? What if people want me to succeed?
Mm, wow. Shifts my whole being, my whole thought process. Yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. Jim, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this enlightening conversation. And I just want to say, I've got my eucalyptus and peppermint candle here. The aroma is lovely. So yes, I definitely love lighting candles and just woo-sighing from time to time.
Woo saw, baby. That's a great movie. Yeah.